Another big item on President Trump's agenda, his plan to upgrade America's infrastructure. A CNN ORC poll finds an overwhelming majority of Americans approve of modernizing our infrastructure, as a new report from the American Society of Civil Engineers shows around $4.6 trillion is what it will cost. Joining us now is conservative commentator Lawrence Jones, radio host of The Lawrence Jones Show, and contributor on Blaze TV. Also, Ethan Behrman, a radio talk show host based out of L.A. Thanks to both of you for joining us. Lawrence, let me start with
Thanks,
you.
Melissa.
So 84% are in favor of reducing middle-class taxes. 79% approve of spending more on infrastructure. So they want tax cuts and more spending. That's America for you. What do you think?
Well, I'm for cutting the spending as it relates to taxes, because it's our money. We should be keeping our money. But as it relates to the infrastructure, that seems a little bit more of what progressives have wanted for years. And I'm not too in favor of that. It looks like another stimulus package. But I don't understand the Democrats that aren't coming on board on this. This is something that they advocated for 8 years under President Barack Obama. They should be happy.
Ethan, you know, he has said $1 trillion. This latest report says we really need about $4.6 trillion. He's proposed doing a combination of public and private funding. We've seen a lot of that in Virginia and other places as a way to get private money into the mix rather than just relying on you and me and our whole audience. What do you think of that?
Well, my concern, well, one, I would start with the $1 trillion. Absolutely, that's a starting point, since, as you just talked about, $4.6 trillion is how much we actually need, because we need functioning bridges and roads and airports.
Sure, but where do you get that
money
from?
Well, that's the big question. So that's why I think that there's something to be said for public-private partnerships. The concern that I have in all of this, anytime you start talking about trillions of dollars of spending, is going to be cronyism, fraud, and waste. And what is the president going to do to address that?
That's what you guys advocated for. That's what you guys advocated for under President Barack Obama. It was the Republicans that were against us. This is something you guys should be applauding.
I am. I just actually said it's a good starting point, Lawrence. So
yeah, you said it's a starting point, but it would be corruption.
Yep, because that is something you have to be worried about anytime you start talking about trillions of dollars. We even saw that with President Obama, that there was some cronyism and some waste and fraud that happened in his Recovery Act. So I want things to be better, Lawrence, and if we're going to do that, we need to begin somewhere. But that doesn't mean we take our eye off the ball and say we want to hold people accountable as well.
No, hang on, Lawrence. Let me ask you, if you go with a public-private partnership, then you get the people who are actually invested in it closer to the project, people who are looking for returns. Isn't that a way to get less waste, fraud, and abuse in government, if the person standing at the door is actually spending their own money?
Right. That's why I'm advocating for a private relationship. I don't think there needs to be this public-private relationship. I think you should just let the private sector do this. What we're seeing in a lot of states is that when they have these partnerships, what ends up happening is the government uses the eminent domain, which taxpayers are definitely against, and then they charge people for toll roads. That's not what the public wants, and I'm sure once they lay out what's actually going to happen, you'll see a lot of pushback from taxpayers.
Yeah, Ethan, at the same time, I mean, this is something that President Trump has a lot on his plate right now. He's trying to deal with health care. The tax situation he's promised is up next, and there are a lot of people chomping at the bit to see a reform of that code. And in the meantime, this is sort of to be on the back burner. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the infrastructure is so critical. We need to get moving on it now. We have bridges failing and collapsing around the United States of America. This is problematic for commerce. If we're interested in making money in this country, we need to have a functioning infrastructure. It should be a priority. But the one thing, when you're talking about spending a lot of money, $1 trillion on infrastructure and cutting taxes, we've been down this path before. Ronald Reagan did that and massively increased our debt and deficits here in the United States. You can't have it both ways. Look, I'm from California.
So you guys are concerned about the
Let me finish and I'll let you respond, Lawrence. Go ahead, Ethan.
They do want it both ways, and California is the evidence, and we have a terrible budget problem in the state of California because of that.
Lawrence, this is exactly where we started this segment. Americans want it both ways. They want tax cuts, and they also want government spending. How do you balance those things?
Look, I think the people that elected Donald Trump want him to cut spending. I think that's the main priority, but they want them to cut their taxes as well. I disagree with him when he says somehow the taxpayers are going to support this plan. I think they're supporting the government giving them their money back instead of the spending so much. So I just don't think that the taxpayers are going to go along with this plan. I just don't think they get all the details. I think they have more faith in the president than the actual policies themselves.
Okay, Ethan, I'll give you the last word. How much faith do you have in the president who, I mean, if nothing else, has done a heck of a lot of building projects? Yeah. So having him look down the road at what we need, pardon the pun, in terms of infrastructure seems like it would make sense.
Yeah, I agree that we need to address this. I don't have a lot of faith in President Trump on much of anything, but at least when it comes to infrastructure, he gets that. As a business person, we have to have functioning infrastructure for business to work in this country. And anybody who says it's just going to be private, it's actually funny that Lawrence doesn't remember what Texas did of building all toll roads because they went private.
And I'm totally
it's
against
all
it.
Toll roads.
Yeah. Okay.
And guess what? Texans hate it. Hate it.
Exactly.
Right.
So you can't just do private.
Let's leave it there since you guys are agreeing. Happy Friday.